All right, so now we're going to move on to writing equations of lines. So we're going to take this graph for example 1. We're going to write it in our slope-intercept form and our point-slope form. First, let's remember that our slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b. So that tells us that we're going to need to find m, our slope, and we're going to have to find b, our y-intercept. The first thing we need to find is that y-intercept. Where does this line cross the y-axis? And we see that right here. And we're going to see that the coordinates of this are going to be at 0 for the x, and we're at negative 1, 2, 3, 4 for the y. Okay, so that y coordinate right there, negative 4, that's going to end up being our b y-intercept. Okay? So now to find our slope, we just need to find another clean point somewhere. So because we read left to right, I'm going to go to the left here and find the next clean point, which means it's directly on those crosshairs. Okay? And I'm going down this, and I go, oh, here's one right here. Cool. I got one. So starting from the left, going to the right, we're going to find ourselves going down 2, meaning we are going to have a negative. So we'll have a negative 2 over, and we're only running right once. This simplifying to our slope is negative 2. So then we come out with y equals, now that we have m, negative 2, plug in for x, or put x, sorry, and then we're going to substitute in for b, our y-intercept. And b was a negative 4, so we're not putting plus negative 4, we just write minus 4. Sorry, it looks a little sloppy there. So we have y equals negative 2x minus 4. Point slope form, we already have our slope, right? We've got our slope, we found out it was negative 2. We need to find a point somewhere, okay? My suggestion is when you find this point, find a point that is not on an axis. And in this case, we're going to, let's just, cruise along, just find it, what? Let's grab this guy up here. This looks good to me right here. Okay? And let's find these coordinates. We're at negative on the x, well, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're at negative 5. And we're positive on the y, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the point that I've chosen to use. Now you can use any point on that line to substitute in, all right? It doesn't matter which point, as long as it's a clean point and you can get your coordinates. I just suggest that we, don't use that one, either one that's on the axes. So our point slope, remember, is y minus y1 is equal to m parentheses x minus x1. So we substitute in, y is going to stay as y. We are going to subtract the y-coordinate. So we look at our y-coordinate here, and we have a positive 6. So we're going to subtract the 6. Sorry, get that change right there. My colors are going to be specific. We're going to subtract that y-coordinate, 6. We're going to set this equal to, we have our slope, which was a negative 2. So we'll plug in negative 2 here. And in parentheses, we have x. Now we're going to subtract our x-coordinate. Now here we have a negative, so it's not going to be x minus 5. This is where it gets a little tricky with point slope. We are subtracting a negative. As we know, when we subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. So we will actually add 5 to that. And that is our point slope. We don't need to convert that. We're done, right? So let's look at a couple different examples when I don't have a graph. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at what we have here. I have my slope and I have a point. So because I have my slope and my point, I need to put this in point slope form. So y minus y1, sorry for the parentheses, is equal to m parentheses x minus x1. This right here being my x and my y, obviously, and m our slope. So we're going to take it and we're going to fill it out here. Y stays. We're going to subtract our y coordinate, which ends up being, it's a positive, so we just subtract 4, is going to be equal to that slope that we have right here, right, our 1/5, a positive 1/5. And then we have our x. We're going to subtract our x coordinate. So we're going to subtract that 10. And we're done. That's it. Just substitute in. Now the next one we have our slope is undefined, and it passes through the point +2, +4. Well, when we have this undefined, we need to remember something here. Okay, your undefined slope, we don't have y equals mx plus b. We don't have this, we can't put it in point slope form, okay, because we don't have anything to put in for m. So what we need to remember is your vux, because we have undefined, the u is undefined. And so this tells us, take a look, we're going to have x equals a number. And what is x going to equal? It's going to equal, and I told my students, it's going to equal that x coordinate. So you're just doing x equals 2. Undefined vux, x equal to the x coordinate. Done. That's it. When we look at C, we're seeing that our slope is 0. Now when we have, this is our 0 slope. We don't put in 0 for m, okay? So just like the previous one where we had vux for undefined, here our zero slope is hoi, okay? And we're going to pass through -3, +7. Well, with hoi, we remember that we now have a y equals a number. That's it. There's no x involved, okay? It will not cross the x-axis, okay? So here we just, exactly like we just did up here, we had x equals a number, we had x equals the x coordinate. Down here, we will have y equals that y coordinate. So y equals 7. These are the easiest ones to do as long as you remember vux and hoi. Next, we're looking at our slope of 1/2. We're going to cross the x-axis, okay? The x-axis at -16. That means our x-intercept, not our y-intercept, but our x-intercept, we're going to cross it at -16 on the x. It's going to be on the x-axis, so it'll be 0 on the y. So now we can actually take this and we can do point slope form. So we have our y minus y1 equals to m parentheses x minus x1. And we can substitute in for what we have. Well, here we have y minus, what's our y coordinate? 0 is equal to our slope of 1/2 parentheses x minus our x coordinate. Again, we're subtracting a negative, so we turn this to a positive. And point slope, you change the sign of your coordinates when you plug them in. Okay? Now here, we don't need this right here, because we never say 5 minus 0. So it ends up actually going into just y equals 1/2 parentheses x plus 16. And that is it for that one. We have 2 more examples to look at. Right? We're given 2 points, and we need to find the line that passes through these 2 points. So right now we got to figure out what our slope is. Remembering that our slope is the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we'll label this with our x1, y1, not a lot of room there, sorry, x2, y2. So we have here y2, right here 3, minus y1, a -11. On the bottom we have x2, 0, minus x1, -2. 3 minus a -11, remember that your minus and negative turns into a plus. We're going to end up with 14 over 0 minus a -2, just 0 plus 2, or put in your calculator. We're going to wind up with 2, and this all rolls down to 7. So our slope in the end is going to be 7. So we know what m is. We have to figure out what b is. What I want you to take a look at is right here, where we have our coordinates 0, 3. Wherever x is 0, that y coordinate is our y-intercept. Okay? So our y-intercept b is just going to be that 3. So we have our slope and we have our intercept. So we have slope-intercept form. So we plug in, we have y equals, we're using our mx plus b. So y is going to equal that slope that we found, 7. We'll have x, and then we're going to add b, which is 3, and we're done. There's our final answer. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here. First, let's go ahead and figure out what our slope is. So using the same formula, I'm not going to rewrite it, we'll just look over here and see it. We do need to make sure we're labeling x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to take x2, 5. We're going to subtract y2, subtract y1. Then we're going to take on the bottom x2, 7. We're going to subtract x1, -3. We find out here that we're going to have 5 minus 5. It's gone because we got a 0. And then we have the 7 minus a -3 ends up being a 10. So because we have this 0 on top, if we put it in our calculator, we're going to realize that this is a 0 slope. Okay? It's just a 0 slope. And then when we talk about that 0 slope, to figure out what our equation is, when we have that 0 undefined, we need to go back to Vux and Hoy. And right here, because of that 0 slope, the one that's going to have the 0 in it is your Hoy. That middle letter, that O, that's your representing that 0. So we take a look at it and we know that y is going to equal a number. I'm going to go ahead and erase that if you guys want to erase that real quick. We're almost done. Because we're going to have y equals a number. So y is going to equal, we'll go look at what your y coordinate was. It's the same on every single point, therefore making it y equals that y coordinate of 5. And these are the different kinds of styles that you will be seeing.